Welcome to Permission to Kick Ass, a podcast about leaving self-doubt in the dust, punching fear in the face, and taking bold action toward your biggest dreams. I'm Angie Coley, and let's get to it. Hey, and welcome back to Permission to Kick Ass. With me today is my new friend, Brook McCarthy. Say hi, Brook.
Hello.
Tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do, Brook.
Sure. I am a business coach. Please don't hold that against me, Angie. I'm also a digital marketing trainer, but I started life as a freelance copywriter and digital marketer. I called myself a digital marketer because it was 2008 and no one really knew anything about, the internet back then. It was the olden days of the internet, and I had some experience on the internet. So I thought, well, me and Google can figure it out, and that's what we did.
I love that. Okay, I think that that's so smart that we're just starting with the compliments right off the bat. I hope you don't mind. I think that's so smart. Like, me and Google can figure it out. Okay, newsflash for those of you that are out there going, oh my God, where do I start? With a Google search, my friends, you can find any number of solutions. Just pick one that feels good and go. I promise nobody else knows that you don't know what you're talking about. Just Google an answer and make it work. I love that. Like, you've been in digital marketing for a long time. I've been in digital marketing for a long time. We have the shared background as a copywriter, which if you're new to the show, and you haven't heard me rant about copywriters before, here's my little disclaimer spiel. We are sales writers. And so we may throw around a little bit of marketing and sales and conversion jargon and stuff like this, but it's all good stuff to know for you in your business, because you're going to have to communicate with people because you need people, even if you don't like people. So there you go. There's a little...
People need people.
I love it. We're going to sing. Yeah.
Oh, dear.
Right. So we were talking a little bit before the call about how you got started, which you said was an interesting origin story. So let us have it.
Look, I thought it was an unusual origin story, but the more I speak to people in self-employment, the more I realize how common it is that people start businesses, they start self-employment for negative reasons, because the internet is full of 20-something-year-olds who decide that they're going to quit their jobs and stop working for the man, and they're going to, find their freedom. One of my favorite propaganda lines, and that's dripping with sarcasm, by the way, in case that didn't come across, is the whole, I'm going to be paid for being me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, some schmuck decided that was a smart line and started pushing this, I'm going to be paid for being self-expressed. I just need to be more of myself and people will be lining up to throw money at me, which I just find bizarro, and I keep looking at it from a different angle thinking maybe they mean it like this, or maybe they mean it like this. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of attractive. I can see the appeal, but no one's really ever paid me, for being me. But yeah, so back to, why people start freelancing and start their own businesses. I took a sideways step from one job or career into another. So my dad was a journalist. When I was young, I won a couple of writing competitions, short story competitions. Nice. And I wanted to be Jack Kerouac. I went looking for, misadventures so that I could write about them, because my family was pretty middle class. And I ended up in public relations. That was my default career. Mm. You know what I mean by default career? Yeah. The fallback.
Like, you kind of fall into it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the easy fallback default career. So eventually I thought, okay, well, this has been fun. And this is really where I was paid for writing for the first time. And it's also where I was paid for, where I started exploring the internet, because I was doing online communications on behalf of a client. So for all of those reasons and more, I'm grateful for PR, but my heart wasn't in it. And I wanted to be a journalist. I wanted to be a writer. So I applied for a job as a writer, and it was a $15,000 pay cut, which was pretty significant when you're earning peanuts.
Yeah.
It was supposed to kind of solve all my problems. And it turned out to be the job from hell. Mm. I tried really hard and failed to get on with the boss, and it was a small business. It was a privately owned business. So she managed me out in this excruciating process, protracted process that put my self-esteem through the ringer.
Oh,
and yeah, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
absolutely.
Yeah. So I found myself gainfully unemployed, and I just thought, the funny thing is that she gave me the idea, because I did have vague, I was pretty young. I was only 28, and I did have vague ideas of working for myself. I was an independent, capable, can-do kind of person. And I'd been working as a tour leader for 2 years in Southeast Asia, which basically means you have a credit card and a budget, and it's like,
bye.
You go, and I'm crossing borders at the ripe old age of 22. I was crossing international borders and bribing immigration officials and, negotiating with bus drivers when the roads, washed away in the monsoon, dealing with, all manner of freakouts by customers that think that they're just coming on a normal trip, and then they realize, oh, wow, this country is very behind.
We're going to dig into that for sure, because that you just threw out something that I was like, oh my God, that's fascinating. I want to circle back to something that you said real quick and highlight it. The negative reasons to quit, and this idea of I can get paid to be me. And I just want to clarify, I think if you want to get paid to be you, great, but figure out a way to make it valuable for other people, because when you turn it to all about me, the world is not interested in you, sweetheart. Unless you're a Kardashian and you already had money and you get to spend a ton of money getting people interested in you, and then you get to be paid. They paid to play a lot of those people. So let's just be clear there. You can be paid to be you after you spend a shit ton of money getting in front of a lot of people and making sure that your name is said over and over again to where people actually pay attention to you. But
absolutely. And, I think there is a nugget of truth there insofar as, I am super passionate and keen on putting more of yourself in your business and understanding what your strengths are, playing to your strengths, putting more of your personality in your business. I ask people about their music tastes in my client intake forms. I ask them if they're a cat or a dog person. I'm deliberately trying to repel people in my marketing, because
I love that.
Yeah, because
especially behind you, I'm looking at the picture of the Queen with the David Bowie lightning across her face, which I thought was great. And of course, nobody gets to see this video with my fresh out of fucks plaque right behind me. But I think that's a way that you can get paid to be you, by providing a valuable service to others while being yourself within your business. But just straight up going out into the world and being like, I'm interesting, give me money.
Yeah.
What are you smoking?
Yeah. And, I think maybe some of that kind of aspirational stuff works when times are good and everybody's rolling in cash. But during an epidemic or a financial downturn, when people, they get insecure, they get frightened, they stop spending money on things that aren't strictly necessary. There needs to be more of a compelling reason for them to open up their wallets. Then, then trying to get paid because you've got pink hair or whatever, and people want to be around people with pink hair is, a hell of a lot harder.
Yes,
you really need to hone in on the value that you're exchanging.
Absolutely. And I thought it was funny that you mentioned you wanted to be Jack Kerouac, because okay, here's my guilty little secret. I wanted to be Shonda Rhimes. I don't know if you know who she is. She's a show creator and showrunner. And I was in LA for a while, actively trying to be a show creator. And then I got laid off and I fell into copywriting. So
yeah. Well, and back to, people start businesses for negative reasons. I hear these variations of this story all the time. People tell me, the reason they start a business, and I work with a lot of women, and it's often a negative reason. They've had 1 baby, 2 baby, 3 baby, 4 or whatever, and gone, just a second, to people with full-time jobs, two parents with full-time jobs, is completely incompatible with, having young kids, or they get bullied in the workplace, or perhaps they get to a certain age that they become far less desirable. Maybe they have a special particular skill set and experience and they want to do something specific with it, and there's just no jobs for it. So they have to, invent their own. There's a variety of reasons, and most of them aren't, I just want to vacation around the world and be a digital nomad and live the dream.
I know. Like, I am a digital nomad, but I think, like, to give a quick overview of the story, like, I was getting ready to quit my job, move in with my partner in our new house, and start this podcast and start the new evolution of my business. Gave notice at my job. 6 days later, my partner says, I don't love you the way you love me. I think we should break it off. The next day he starts moving out. And then I got to figure out I had all these plans to start my business and grow the podcast and stuff like that. I took that as a sign from the universe. Like, sometimes you need a great big old kick in the pants to do things differently and stop coasting. And I think, to tie that into what you're saying about like negative reasons, part of the reason that I left I was a full-time copy chief and running teams and a copywriter was just, I fell out of love with doing that and I needed to do something different. And then that breakup happened and it was kind of like, oh yes, something different has to happen. Like now. If you don't have any more options.
Absolutely. Yeah. My God.
Oh, that's such and I think there are good reasons to leave a business too, but it winds up being more often, because I work with a lot of newer entrepreneurs too. I think the negative one is easier to leave for, if that makes sense. Like, it's
absolutely. I think, that kind of comes to the crux of conversion copywriting, if we're going to pull it back into copywriting.
Heck yeah.
But, people are more motivated to get away from negative situations than they are to move towards positive situations. And I think that absolutely that is the case with, big life decisions for sure. And even getting that tour leading job, I had such a shitty time. And I was just like, I need to go overseas and I need to get paid to stay away. How do I get a job where I'm paid to travel? And my cousin, gave me this job ad and that was the job. So.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, and that was a nice segue too, because I wanted to dig a little bit more into like how you found yourself being a tour guide, haggling with bus drivers. Tell me more about that. I want to hear about that.
These are skills that I continue to use absolutely every single day in my business, because I think regardless of the technical part of what you do, so let's pretend you're a painter. Let's pretend you're an artist and you do beautiful artworks and people buy them and whatever. Still at the heart of every single business is communication skills. Mm-hmm. And I really think that the better you are at communicating, the better you are at life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And, I've been doing this for decades now, and I've been a professional communicator. And on a good day, I'm like, yeah, I'm okay at it. I'm all right at it, because so much of it's outside of your control. So, that's a huge part of it. And this job was really meeting people in Bangkok, for example, or Saigon in Vietnam, and having to, create a first impression, a good first impression, which I wasn't always great at. And I often, one thing I remember very vividly is I remember thinking, oh, I did a great job. I really nailed that first meeting. And then, 2 weeks later, I'm on an elephant in, wherever we were, Thailand or Laos or whatever. And I'm talking to one of the passengers who I really liked. I developed, I thought, oh, this guy's, this is my guy. This is my kind of person. And he said something to me about what a terrible first impression I'd given at the dinner. And I was like, oh, in my mind, it went really, really well and I'd totally nailed it. And, and he was somebody whose opinion I respected 2 weeks later, who was like, nah, you got that wrong. So
did he at least give like helpful feedback?
Yeah, I think he did say a couple of things. But it was a really steep learning curve, not least of which was because I was traveling in, third world countries that I didn't know that well, dealing with local suppliers, local people, and both of these countries were actually war-torn countries as well. So Vietnam and Cambodia, especially Cambodia, it's a country that I think the whole nation is suffering from post-traumatic stress.
Yeah.
And I think I was a bit shell-shocked too, because I'd had a big misadventure, which had led me into tour leading. So I think me and Cambodia were an interesting pair.
Find it funny that life seems to put you where you need to be to learn what you need to learn. I'm not a very woo person, but when I look back on my life at all the things that I thought were drastic left turns that came out of nowhere, it was oh no, I see how that led to that and what I picked up from that led me here. So crazy.
Absolutely. For sure. Absolutely. So yeah, that was just a fabulous, learning curve in communication, intercultural communication, dealing with difficult situations. There were always curveballs. There was constantly, things that went wrong. Anything that could go wrong would go wrong. And learning how to blag and how to look confident and how to act confident and how to be resourceful. I think looking confident, acting confident and being resourceful are central to employment, absolutely crucial.
Which is funny because I've been talking a lot about with one of my groups of friends about something called inner authority, which just really resonated with me. And I think a lot of people mistake it for confidence, and a lot of people therefore wait to take action until they feel confident. And if you're waiting to feel confident, waiting to feel ready, it's probably never going to happen. The secret is that most of us feel scared and then do the damn thing anyway.
Oh, absolutely. We have so many weird misconceptions about confidence. I treat it as an action because, yes, it is a feeling, but you can't afford, to not feel confident when you're self-employed. You have to get on with it, because if you sit at your desk and go, oh, I'll wait, nothing will happen, and you'll be there, eating bloody water and dust for dinner. You've got to get out there and you've got to blag a little and you've got to act confident in order to accrue the experience that's going to actually give you the legitimate feelings of confidence. But, waiting until you feel, the amount of times in that job where I just wanted to die, where I'd be hungover, I'd have to walk down, have 20 eyeballs looking at me, trying to figure out what's she wearing today, what's she doing, how does she look today, and I just want to throw things at them, give me a coffee and leave me alone and don't make me smile and do small talk. You just have to get on with it. And I think that's kind of crucial. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you have to make mistakes and kind of put yourself into those uncomfortable situations, because sometimes that's really the only way to learn. I love that you talked about getting thrown into having to learn communication skills, because I think that's something we don't talk about enough in entrepreneurship, that it's not just being good at your thing, whether that's making music or baking cakes or writing copy. Whatever you're good at is only one piece of the equation. Communication is probably close to half of the rest of it. Yeah. And I see in so many writer groups and this drives me nuts. Okay, here's my little soapbox rant. If you think all clients suck and clients are the enemy, you don't have a business and you're not going to be in business for very long. They don't all suck. They really don't. Yeah. I have clients that I've worked with for a short time, clients I've worked with for a long time, and they are amazing people. I would go to dinner with them, sit down and have beer with them. I would ride roller coasters. They are awesome people. Yeah. It didn't just fall out that way. I've done a lot of work on my communication skills, and I've gotten really good at taking the first step in an uncomfortable conversation. I don't let it get to the point where I'm in a Facebook group with the pitchfork mob bitching about all my clients suck. Are they trying to take advantage of me? And we all have that experience. So I'm not trying to shit on you if you're going through a rough experience with a client. It happens. But 9 times out of 10 in my experience, when you're having a lot of hurt feelings and really struggling with a client, there's a communication breakdown somewhere. There's a mismatch of expectations. Somebody wasn't talking to somebody else. Somebody made some assumptions somewhere that proved incorrect. And everybody's got their feelings hurt. And then rather than coming to somebody and saying, hey, I'm really disappointed, how do we fix this? Everybody goes off to their corner. of the internet, gripes about everybody else, gets even more in their feelings, and then it blows up. Oh, so frustrating.
Yeah. And I tell you what, none of us, these are skills, I'm a bit of a self-employment geek, Angie. Like, I have to say, I'm one of those people that think that self-employment will save the world and it's the future of working. And regardless of whether or not you intend to have a job and you want to have a job and you're comfortable with a job, I still think a side gig is really, really useful. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons is that it forces all these things that you could actively avoid for the rest of your life, including the art of having a difficult conversation and, the ability or the willingness to go towards the awkward and towards the uncomfortable, and to realize that you're not going to die because, things are a little bit odd with something. So, that the skills we learn in self-employment, I reckon, are life skills. Yes. And they are so applicable in so many different areas.
Yes, absolutely. And I 5,000% agree with you that even if you don't want to be like full-time, look, I understand that it's different situations for different people at different times in your life. You may feel more comfortable with a job. You may need to be secure. It's all good. It's not shitting on jobs. I just want to point out that the only person that you can depend on at the end of the day is you. And if that job goes away because they've got an obligation to protect their business, not take care of you, then who do you depend on? That job's gone. You got to be able to get yourself back up and so like, I totally agree with you. I think that that's the future of work. And that if you want to have any semblance of control over your life, how close you get to your dreams, what you get to do, you absolutely got to have some sort of side hustle. If not, go full-time self-employed. Absolutely.
I have a lot of respect for people that have side hustles. I never had a side hustle. I jumped straight in. I look at people that have jobs and a side hustle and I think, shit, that looks exhausting.
It is. It is.
I teach people how to start side hustles. So, in the training that I do, I run courses face-to-face and online, and I teach people how to start businesses and how to start side hustles. And I can almost, at the risk of sounding a little arrogant, I could almost tell right off the bat if somebody's going to make it or not. And it has nothing to do with their experience and their hard skills and everything to do with their attitude.
Yes.
And, whether or not they're one of those people who are, I can figure it out. It'll be fine. She'll be right, mate. I've got the resources. If I don't know what I need, I'll go and Google, versus the people who are like, you can see that, things get really real for them, because when I'm teaching how to start a business and how to start a side business, the homework is go and start a business, go and find someone who will pay you for your goods or services. And people have this panic look in their eyes. And then often, not often, but I'll have people at the end of the course come to me and say, what book should I get from the library? And it's like, oh, dude, were you paying attention? I said in the very first session, this is 99% practice and 1% theory, and he's like, if only I had the book, my fear go away. These people ain't ever going to make it. And you can tell, because the attitude is all back to front. They're waiting for direction. They're waiting for signposts. They're waiting for the rule book. They're waiting for the guidelines. They want to be told and taught exactly what to do and what not to do. And
hey, guys, that's an employee. That's exactly what an employee does.
Yeah, absolutely. And, this ability to make it up as you go along, it fills me with joy, because I was the kid who, I was the teenager. Maybe I was a little bit more biddable when I was younger, but when I was a teenager, I was the smart ass. I was the person that sat in the back of the room and made, barbarous jokes of what I thought were funny at other people's expenses.
Over here nodding, going, yup.
Yeah. Heckled the teacher, and did religious studies. That was my major. And then I went on and did religious studies at uni. Like, with an arts degree, I think they call it liberal arts in the States. You got to make it up as you go along. There's no job waiting for you. There's no career path. You're on your own. So,
like, I've had writers in the past that were like, what degree should I get? I'm like, first of all, don't get a degree if you want to be a copywriter. Just like, how much writing are you writing? Well, I haven't been paid to write yet. There's your problem right there. You need to start. I don't care if it's a blog just for you. I don't care if it's a diary that you write in every day that nobody sees but you. But like, if you want to be a writer and eventually get paid for it, you need to be writing consistently.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the reasons I actually moved out of copywriting, because I love writing, but it was sapping my joy for it. And I actually specialized for the first 7 years in alternative health and yoga. And I was being paid to write about meditation. I was a newly qualified yoga teacher being paid to write about yoga. I was like, I've hit the bloody jackpot here. I can't believe people are paying me to write all this stuff. And yet still I kind of got to the end of it and I thought, if I have to write another goddamn article on yoga or meditation, I'm going to scream. And you know, I love writing. I love blogging. You know, I'll happily write free articles on things that I'm interested in, but, you know, it saps the joy out of me when I need to kind of keep writing the same thing at the client's direction.
Absolutely. And it's like, that's what I'm glad you brought that up, because I think we also, from outside business building, have this impression that like, once you figure it out, it's all great. Now, because once you figure it out, you could be coasting along a little while, happy, like, oh my God, I can't believe people pay me to do this. And then hit that wall of, I don't want to do this anymore. Now what? I know more people that have pivoted as entrepreneurs, completely changed. I have a friend who started as a writer and now has a cheese business. I have another friend who started as a writer and is now a life coach. I started as a writer and now I am a confidence coach and a podcast host. Like, we all get to a point in that career, even if there are periods of extreme joy where it's like, I don't want to write about this anymore. I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I'd rather tell stupid stories about my travels with like the lady that was shrieking Bohemian Rhapsody on a random Tuesday night because she was drunk. Those are the stories that I want to write now. Like, I don't want to write big, long sales pages about this course and the next internet marketing thing anymore. I just don't want to do it.
Absolutely. For sure. Absolutely.
I think that's great. Just talking about, so you were in that sweet spot where you got to write about the thing that you loved, and then you hit that wall. Is that what led you to becoming the business coach that you are? Or was there a step in between there, or what?
Yeah, well, it kind of happened concurrently. So I started, funny story, Angie. I was working from home, have always worked from home. My partner's also self-employed. We borrowed $1 million from the bank in order to buy this house in Sydney, because you've got to sell your kidney to live in Sydney, to own a property in Sydney. And we had 2 babies, or rather I did, in fairly quick succession. Baby number 2 was a whoopsie, and it was all chaos all the time. There was vomit down the hallway that stayed there because none of us had time to clean it up. And every time the phone rang, there'd be this like, "You take the baby, no, you take the baby, you've got to take the baby, I've got to get this phone." It was just hugely stressful. And our friends kept saying, "Oh, you guys, you're living the dream. Look at you. You know, you're both working from home with your babies." And I was like, "Kill me now. I'm dying." And I just started fantasizing about standing on a stage. And I started fantasizing about somebody calling me and saying, "Brooke, I've got this group of people. I was wondering if you could teach them. Hey, Brooke, could you come and talk to my group of people?" And the second that became more obvious that was my fantasy, I booked a flight to Melbourne and I booked a venue and I started teaching. And it started off as a way to basically legitimately run away from my babies. I was dying. I was seriously dying. And, that's where it began, really. And I travelled all around Australia. I've taught all over Australia in all the major capital cities. And then somebody at one of the courses in Brisbane said to me, "Do you do this one-to-one? Could you give me one-to-one help?" And I'm like, "Sure, I guess so, yep." And that's pretty much it. That's how I started coaching. And that's what I've continued to do. I just kind of follow my curiosity. And I think if you follow your curiosity and you do so with, a view to, will people pay for this? Is this something people will pay for? Then I think you can't go wrong.
I love that too, especially the thing that really stuck out to me about what you said was approach it with curiosity, follow the curiosity. I think that's brilliant because like so many people, I think, approach business like do or die, succeed or
Yes.
fail. And like, no, it's do, and then
Yeah.
figure it out on the fly. And I
Yeah.
think kind of circling back to what you said about the people that you know are going to make it. I think the ones that make it have this attitude of experimentation. Like that seems like something I want to try. Okay, let me figure out how to do that and we'll just see what happens. And so I love that you tell that with your story about like, well, I have this vision of me on stage. So what do okay, I'm going to go book a venue. I'm going to have a class. Let me see. And then you just like followed that curiosity exactly and wound up where you are. Like sometimes you can't start with the end in mind because you don't even know what the end looks like.
No idea. Yeah. Yeah. And oftentimes we like the idea of a thing, and as I experienced, the idea of a thing is very different from the actual thing. And you get the experience and go, okay, well, that's done. I can cross that off my list because that was shit. Yeah. And I'm moving on to the next thing now. And at the moment, like following the curiosity, at the moment, I'm really interested in facilitation. And that's like the next step beyond training. I did some facilitation training yesterday or maybe the day before. And the trainer made this point. He said, facilitation is just a really good conversation. So think about what are the elements of a really good conversation and how can you bring that to the fore? And I'm like, oh my God, this is like heaven to me because, like conversation is my joy, my absolute joy, and the art of good conversation and the art of storytelling. And, when you're at a party and there's a little crowd forms around somebody and everybody's leaning in and they're laughing and you're drawn towards it and you're thinking, what? And then the opposite, like my dad's a terrible storyteller, great writer, terrible storyteller. Everybody's leaning out, and they're kind of excusing themselves to go and get a drink because, he just doesn't know how to hold people. I think facilitation is just fascinating. And having done, my training is moving more towards facilitation. And having been, paid before for, this is a great example, Angie, client calls up, says, hey, Brooke, I was hoping that we could talk about the future of our industry. Do you think you could help? And I'll get my clients, my staff together. And I'm like, sure. I don't know how, I've never done this before, but yeah, I could give it a go, and then at the end of the session, they go, that was great. And you're like, oh, that's good, I guess.
I was just flying by the seat of my pants. Like, yes, I'm going to underline that and put like 5 exclamation points on that. Say yes and figure it out. If it sounds like an interesting thing and people will pay you for it, say yes and figure it out. Yes.
Because there is a reason why you think you're not good enough. There is a reason why you think you're an imposter. There is a reason why your confidence is shaky. And it has absolutely nothing to do with your ability and everything to do with your social conditioning, your socialization, the country you grew up in, the people that infiltrated you and told you that, you needed another degree and you needed you to cross your T's and dot your I's. So I'm trying to act like a mediocre white man. That's my resolution. I'm trying to just do that, and have the confidence of a mediocre white man. And so far it's working really well.
Don't talk yourself out of things. Like throw your hat in the ring because the worst that happens is you are exactly the same as you were before you threw your hat in the ring. The best case is your life changes for the better and you can trace it all back to that one moment that you decided to bet on yourself and try something out. I've seen it happen. I'm not even exaggerating. You can have one single moment where you made a decision to say yes, and that changes the whole forward trajectory. Yeah. Like I talked about being laid off and falling into copywriting. I had no idea this field existed before I got laid off. It was one random conversation in passing where someone mentioned a book. And for some reason, in the depths of my despair, because there was some wallowing that happened after the layoff, right? I got laid off from the Oprah Winfrey Network of all places. So I was extra special wallowing. It's like, I go, remember this book all of a sudden, go spend $20 I don't have on this book, go, I could do that. And then proceed to like fumble my way through building a career in copywriting, which I eventually left. Like, so this is all part of the journey for everybody that's listening, just like figuring it out, saying yes, getting really good at communication.
Yep.
Reading things like experiments.
Yeah. Follow your curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Oh, this has been so gold. So Brooke, I love everything about this conversation. I think we're going to have a follow-up. So tell us more about where to find you on the internet.
Yes. So I have 2 websites, which is one too many.
I think I have 2 or 3. It's okay.
The main website that I put most of my efforts into is hustleandheart.com.au. And my other website is Brook McCarthy. There's no E on Brook.com. You can find me on all the social channels as Brook McCarthy. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. I teach social media, so unfortunately I'm also on TikTok and Pinterest. I teach TikTok. I have taught TikTok to 18-year-olds at university. My God, I felt old. And don't go looking for me on TikTok, please. Oh my God, everybody's going to go.
No, that was funny because I was like, "Ooh, could you teach me TikTok?" Because like I've got people telling me that I need to be on there, and it actually sounds kind of fun the way it's described to me. Like because I have this vision with permission to kick ass to show people how much fun you can have failing and falling. Yeah. Just try something and maybe you fail. And hey, the best stories come from when you fell flat on your face. Think of all your favorite movies. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is one of my favorite movies. I don't know if you've ever seen that one with Steve Martin.
It's a classic.
It's a best story ever. Everything went wrong. Yeah. And it was the best story just to watch that. Like it makes a great story. Nobody ever wakes up and you don't go to pay to $20 to see a movie that was like, they woke up and everything was perfect.
Oh, no. Absolutely. And, as a writer, you've got to go looking for that. You've got to go looking for, the disasters. And then you're like, this is going to be a good story. This is going to be a great story. Even if I want to die right now, it's going to be so funny. Going to be my mantra to get me to sleep. I'm in the most stressful period of my life. It's going to be a good story someday. It's going to be a good story. Of course. You're a digital nomad during COVID. I mean, say no more.
Yeah, absolutely. What can go wrong will go wrong. I have no doubts about that. Oh, thank you. This has been so much fun, and I will talk to you soon.
Thank you.
So that is it. Another awesome episode of Permission to Kick Ass on the books. If you want to know more about the show, if you want to know more about me, Angie Coley, and the mission I'm on to help entrepreneurs punch fear in the face and do big, bold things, then head on over to permissiontokickass.com. That is all one word together, permissiontokickass.com. Make sure to sign up for my email list so that you know whenever there's a hot, fresh, and ready podcast episode out for you. And also on Mondays, I like to send out a little newsletter called Kick Monday's Ass. I'm sure you're totally surprised by that. So thank you for being here with me today. I'm Angie Coley. Make sure that you share this with a friend that needs to hear this message today. Like it, share it, comment wherever you're listening to this today, and let's go kick some ass.